Dissociative identity disorder, DID, which is otherwise known as multiple personality disorder, is the most complex of the dissociative disorders that involve all 5 kinds of the dissociative experience we referred to earlier. Not just the identity alteration, which we all want to identify it with. It does involve that, but it's not just that. And so all the different kinds of dissociative experience, somebody with DID will experience all of those at probably a moderate to severe level. And in addition, they will have a whole range of non-dissociative effects. So for instance, anxiety, depression, various kinds of mood disturbances. But the way in which those non-dissociative effects are expressed are within a dissociative framework. So the way in which they come out are different from how they would be if you didn't have the dissociation. And you can't just address those effects unless you also address the dissociation.
Dissociative identity disorder is when two or more very separate parts of someone appear at different times. Okay, so that you've got, at times it may be someone behaving and being in the world as people are used to them being, but at other times suddenly being very different, maybe very childlike, maybe very aggressive, out of character, maybe unable to move physically, and having no recollection of that when that person goes back to being the way people normally associate them as being.
PTSD is a term that a lot of people at least have some understanding of. So, for example, if you've been involved in a horrific car crash, a lot of people understand that it would be quite hard to get back in the car for a while, and as a society we're very understanding to a certain level of that. Basically, each alter has a lot of them. So although it's far more complex than PTSD, and a lot of treatments that are appropriate for PTSD are not appropriate for DID because it's so much more sort of in the fabric of being. In terms of a way of understanding it, it's often not dissimilar, because each alter will have links to horrendous or traumatic experiences in their life that then kind of interweave in the present life.
It's a lifesaver. It's when, as a child, it can be caused by other situations, but I'm going to talk about it from my personal point of view as a child. How do you cope when you rely on absolutely everything for your own needs from people around you? And even if they're not the ones actually abusing you, your brain cannot cope with the situation, so it fragments even at that age. So the trauma is held in one part, totally unprocessed, like it's just happened in the moment, because the brain can't begin to process it. Even as an adult, you don't have the wherewithal to process some of the things we as children were put through, because you've then got to be the child who grows up and helps other people, sits up straight at the meal table, so your brain has to cope with this. So for me, I see dissociation as my lifesaver. Why it becomes complex is because your behaviour becomes obsolete when you're not under threat, but your brain is it is developed in a way that it only knows how to act in that way. So into adulthood, I continued to act as though I was under threat the whole time. My brain didn't know that the abuse had stopped in many ways. There was no reason for it to.